Keeping your business healthy in today's marketplace can be a challenging and overwhelming task. From the threat of litigation inside and outside your organization and the inefficiencies that can rob your bottom line as a result of unproven marketing programs, the deck can be stacked against you. To get ahead of these challenges and stay ahead of your competition, the Bottled Business Sense Show provides practical business solutions that uniquely emphasize key legal principles, management techniques, and marketing strategies to protect and ensure the longevity of your business. You'll learn how to implement marketing and protection principles equal to those used by today's most successful corporations. Join your hosts Bill Bernard, Rick Moscoso, and Steve Smith for some high-energy discussion that will inspire you to take control of your business so it can prosper in today's consistently challenging business environment.
Good morning, everyone. This is the Bottled Business Sense Show. I am Rick Moscoso, one of your co-hosts this morning, along with Mr. Bill Bernard, sitting on the other end. Before I bring him on, though, I just wanted to welcome all of our returning viewers and listeners to the show. And to our new viewers and listeners, we are at the Bottled Business Sense Show are a simulcast meeting of the minds, so to speak, between some marketing experts, some legal experts, some business coaching that we put in front of you free information on how to best how to use best practices, how to use smart activities to make your business and help your business run efficiently, more safely from a legal standpoint, and more efficiently from a marketing aspect as well. And so Bill and I and Steve love doing this. We've done it now for the last couple of years. Just recently celebrated our 100th episode, and looking forward to doing another 100 episodes with our viewership out there. So with that, I want to bring on my co-host this morning, who's going to talk about the challenges that confront every business partnership. But before he gets into that, I want to welcome on Mr. Bill Bernard. How are you doing this morning, Bill?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Rick. Interesting that we've been on for almost a couple of years now, and it's important for everybody to realize, as I point out very often, that this is free information, and while we may not have a direct client relationship with you, you can take some of the basics of what we provide and adapt it to your business so you can protect it and keep it prosperous. And, if you choose to have a personal relationship with us, we're always there to help you out if you want to contact us. And we can certainly be contacted on all social media sites: LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+, Twitter. We have the website, bottlebusinesssense.com, of course. And my personal website, wfblegalconsulting.com, has a link to the show. And Rick's site is captivate365.com. So, you have a number of sources where you can go and listen to the show, and you can also watch it in simulcast so you can see us and comment on how we're dressed or how we look or whatever it is. You can draw pictures of us while you're listening to us. We provide you with a vast array of things to do. But in all seriousness, we enjoy doing this, and we try to keep your business afloat by providing these tips to you. So today, as Rick mentioned, challenges confronting every business partnership is an interesting topic, Rick, because while I don't approve of partnerships per se, and I think I've made that clear over the last few years, there are people that have partnerships. There are people that choose to enter partnerships. There are people that establish partnerships without even knowing it, because without a formal business entity, if you join in a business with somebody, there needs to be no formal agreement. Your actions alone can establish a business partnership, and with that carries some issues that have to be resolved. But today's show, aside from those issues, really is directed to speak more to some other challenges that you face apart from just mere legal challenges in terms of liability issues, but rather, how do you get along with this person? Because remember, whatever person is your partner could end up being a problem child to where you then have potential legal issues Thus, my reasons for wanting you to establish a formal business entity from day one. So, we try to help these people who have partnerships get along, if you will. So maybe from more of a psychological standpoint today and a practical standpoint, we're going to talk about partnerships as opposed to strictly a legal standpoint.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it that way, because I would think that if someone was getting into a partnership intentionally, that they already have some kind of relationship, some kind of understanding, and at least have have the desire to go into partnership because they do get along and think it's a great idea.
Well, hopefully so. And hopefully people put this down on paper and understand. Remember, you could enter a partnership because somebody comes to you with a good business plan, or what you perceive to be a good business plan, or you can enter a partnership merely because you're very good friends with somebody and you trust them. But not always do the two go together. Because you find someone very trustworthy doesn't mean, number one, that person's going to be good for a business together. And number two, even if they are, the trust issue doesn't necessarily mean they're going to carry out their duties appropriately. Remember, not all of this is done intentionally. Most of it, if not all of it, is usually done in a negligent sort of a way. People just get lackadaisical, or they don't pay attention to what they're supposed to do. Hence, the first of these 5 or 6 items that I decided to talk about today is different management styles. So you've got 2 people getting together. Let's take that example. One typically should be, if you're going to set this up appropriately and have different management styles, which more than likely, is going to be a pretty good chance that you will. You're going to want one to be the disciplinarian who is task-oriented. This is the person who's going to get things done. This person lays down the law and keeps the ship, the business in a bottle, if you will, afloat, keeps it going. While the other one is a more laissez-faire type of individual who may take on the job of keeping the employees happy, keeping morale on course, making sure that a positive attitude is always kept in the business. So you have these different management styles, and sometimes they backfire. So partners should sit down and say, what are my tasks going to be in this partnership? What's my role going to be? We have different management styles, so how are we going to rectify that? And you want to kind of split these themes up, if you will. You want to kind of put people in charge of certain things. So where you have discipline, where you have different management styles, sit down and don't feel that you're going to, don't get tired of each other. Sit down and put things on paper and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do, and start right from scratch and follow that course of action. It's like an outline, if you will, but you got to follow it. Remember, I've often said things are not worth the paper they're written on if you don't adhere to them, if you don't follow them. Okay, so that's real important when you start a business.
Yeah. So for what reason? I mean, it still boggles my mind when when people go into partnerships, and I can see it for small projects and that sort of thing. But if it's significant enough where you have employees, you have a significant amount of business, I just wonder, trying to get into the minds of these people who don't emphasize why do they go into partnership without formally creating the entity?
Yeah, and for people,
thoughts on that?
Yeah, and for people who don't understand what Rick just said when he used the words emphasize, that's a special bottle business sense term that we use where we try to tell you to form a business entity. So Rick's asking, essentially why people, we've talked about this on other shows, Rick. It's very easy to form a partnership, as I said at the top of this show. You just start doing business together. You don't need a formal agreement if you don't want one, although, of course, I would urge you to have one, but you don't need one. I say you need one, but to form the partnership, you don't need one from a technical standpoint is what I mean. And people, it's very easy. There's no paying the franchise tax board every year. There's no having annual meetings if you don't want to. It's just an easy way to say, hey, let's start making money. In other words, people see the dollar signs first as opposed to what might happen down the road. That's typically, take the second item that we're going to talk about here, personal habits. Each partner may have different personal habits, and that becomes a trigger point for a potential problem down the road. So it's important that both partners do what? Keep an open mind and give each other time and space when necessary, and recognize those trigger moments. What's the problem of just saying, hey, here's what ticks me off, or here's what gets under my skin? And if you know the person, as opposed to somebody who's just going to go into a partnership with you that you haven't known very long, well, you typically probably have a pretty good idea of what that is. And hopefully that other person has an open enough mind where you can divulge that to them, speak to them about it, and vice versa, without them getting ticked off or you getting ticked off.
So when you're talking about personal habits, you're talking about more uncovering character traits, personality traits that you would typically deal with while you're doing business together. Is that what you're talking about?
Sure. So something might happen in a business that there might be a particular kind of thing that occurs in a business that will set your partner off. For example, when clients don't pay on time, let's say you have a 30-day time period in which to pay your bills each month. After 30 days, you impose a interest on the amount due. Somebody's going to have to make those collection calls. So you're going to want that individual who's going to be the one who's most amenable to doing that sort of thing to make the call, as opposed to the partner who might just have a short fuse and start getting nasty with the person who owes the money. So that's just one example that you really have to kind of hone in on when you're going to have to understand each other's personal habits and make sure that you've got that down and that you've got a plan of action for whatever problem that might arise in the business and who's the best to handle that particular problem. Financial problems is the third area. You might find somebody who's willing to put up all the money and just needs technical support of some sort to help get the business off the ground. Are those guidelines absolutely clear to both partners? Or is one partner going to come back and say later on, well, wait a minute, this is my ball game. You didn't put up a dime. And the other guy, of course, is saying, well, wait a minute, I wasn't supposed to put up a dime, number one. And number two, my technical skills are so good that this business wouldn't even be operating if it wasn't for me. I don't care if you're a multimillionaire. So, you've got to be able to sort those things out and not have a situation where you can come back and shove it in somebody's face. It's sort of like the husband and wife argument where one of them says, well, you always do X, Y, or Z. But of course, X, Y, or Z occurred 5-10 years ago, right? Never occurred since, but it's kind of thrown back up in your face. You got to avoid that sort of thing. And of course, we all know, and we can take this example from why marriages fail. Again, financial problems are typically the highest issue that cause problems in marriages. So you have a financial problem of some sort in your business, or you have one partner who's putting up all of the financial security while the other one's putting up technical security, that could really pose a problem down the line. You got to have that understanding. You got to make sure that's something you really want to get into with somebody else. Do you want to have somebody who contributes no dollars? Those are things that you really absolutely have to consider. And that's why I keep saying form a business entity, because typically with a business entity, you then are almost forced into setting forth an agreement to where everyone is under the clear understanding of what each other's supposed to do. But even with agreements, Rick, we all know, right? People violate agreements. So these are things that are more apropos to happen in a partnership because it's less formal, but it could happen in any business and needs to be considered.
Yeah, you could. If you're in something significant, like in the description that you said, where one partner is fronting a lot of the funding and the other one's just doing the work, it it can lead to a very stressful situation and a very, it could lead to a combative situation down the road should a problem arise if you're just in a partnership. So, like Bill always says, why not solidify it so the roles are very distinct, they're very clear, the expectations are clear, everything is on the up and up, everything's laid out on the table, all the expectations are set, and now you can effectively go and run your business and get out there and make money efficiently, right?
Right. And let me take it a step further. Even if you don't form a formal business entity, you can still have a partnership agreement that's a contract and that the partners have to adhere to. So at the very least, have that contract in place. Now, that's not going to protect you from outside liabilities like a formal business entity might, but because each partnership's going to share in the partnership debts. But it will at least identify your roles should you have to butt heads against each other, which, of course, we don't want to have. But if it does happen, remember that let's expand on this for just a second. Let's take a formal business entity. What does the operating agreement in an LLC or the bylaws in a corporation or the partnership agreement in a partnership have in common? They define the roles and the liability, if you will, against each of the people in the business. So that's a common thread. What the formal business entity does that the partnership doesn't do is also define liability when it comes to outside third parties who may want to sue you. So you don't have that protection in a partnership, but at least with an agreement, you have some protection in setting forth the boundaries that will apply for each partner as to each other. And that leads us to the fourth area, setting boundaries. Best friends who become business partners can face unexpected situations that compromise their professional and personal relationship. You have to understand that while you might initially think a best friend is the person you want to go in business with because you trust them the most, that may be the worst case scenario, because now best friends tend to kind of take advantage of each other in a subconscious way, if you will. They have expectations of what each other is going to do. And if something should happen in the business, one might take the attitude toward the other, my God, he crossed me. How could he do that? That's my best friend. How could he make that business decision? How could he want to make that business decision? How could he ask me to do something like that? A whole array of doors open up that might not open up if you have a business partner who's not your best friend.
Yeah.
So you got to set those boundaries. You got to be aware of them, first of all, Rick. That's the thing. You have to be aware of them and be able to address them before, not after or during the partnership arrangement, but before. And the next one would be commitment levels. One might just be in it for the experience, but not want to provide the time and dedication necessary, even if it's in a formal agreement. Like a partnership agreement, you have to decide before you sit down and enter a business with somebody, what's the commitment that you have? Why are you in this business? Are you in it strictly to make money? Are you in it to gain some experience so you can go off later on and have your own business? Are you really dedicated to put the time and effort into this business, not only to make it successful, but to make it successful as our business together, as opposed to what I just want out of it or what you just want out of it? Is this going to be a marriage, if you will, using that term loosely, right? So commitment is extremely important in a business partnership. These are some of the challenges that business partnerships face. And the final one, Rick, is disparities in skills and roles. Few established professionals are willing to take risks. It becomes a matter of finding anyone willing to have the qualifications that you have. In other words, if you don't find an individual who's willing to take risks in the business to make it successful, who's willing to put the marketing dollars in, for example, that you need to put in, then are you settling for somebody who merely has the qualifications to do the job, but who's not willing to take the risks necessary to make the business successful? That's extremely important. I mean, you could probably think of a number of partnerships that come to mind, Rick, where you got two guys together who had great skills, right? But who just weren't willing to take the same risks to make the business successful, or who had divergent ideas on where the business was supposed to go, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You need to understand where that business is supposed to go before you enter the business. Before you enter the business, you need to understand where it's supposed to go, and then you're supposed to be on the same page to make that ship in the bottle get to that destination, right?
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the first phase of any great idea that friends have out there, or
right.
Associates have. I mean, they dive feet first into it because it's such a great idea. They see the potential on the horizon, but then they forget about all the mechanics that are necessary to set up and how we're going to do this together to get to that end goal. And
right.
If their discovery is complete and they're doing it the right way, and they're answering all these questions in these five, 6 points that you just brought up, it would just make sense to go ahead and formalize it with some form of entity, but in at least in a minimum, a partnership agreement like you
yes.
suggested,
and in the same mental plane. You got to operate on the same mental plane, with difference in management styles, personal habits, financial issues, boundary setting, your level of commitment, and any disparities that you might have in terms of the goal of the business. All of those 6 issues need to be honed in on and discussed before you start the business. And then the appropriate thing to do would be to have an understanding and then put that into a formal business partnership agreement, and make sure that you're on the same ship. You're not on one person's not on the Queen Mary and the other one's on the Princess Cruise Lines. One can't be taking a vacation and the other one chugging ahead to reach a goal. It's got to be a combination. It's got to be working together.
Yeah, I mean, every little thing that we've talked about here, every downside of things that you've talked about are just potential distractions that are just going to get in the way of the goal that you had set forth because of this great idea. So take Bill's advice, and if you want to learn more about how to, at least at a minimum, formalize your great idea or really protect yourself, please reach out to Bill. He's a great resource. Can definitely point you in the right direction, get you guys both on the same ship and sailing in the same direction. So, Bill, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me on the website, of course, which is wfblegalconsulting.com. My phone number is 949 area codes for both. 413-6535 and 698-6222. And of course, as we said at the top of the show, Rick and I are both on all these social sites where you can easily get a hold of us. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, be aware that business partnerships face a tough enough road ahead by not being formalized. You at the very least need to get on the same page with your business partner, should you choose to go that route. And then at the very least, have a business agreement, a partnership agreement that's formalized at the very least, because then you each understand the roles that you have to each other and to the business, and have documented in effect what roles those are in a discussion that you had prior to even forming the business. That's really the goal, because business partnerships can be very challenging. So hope that's been helpful for everybody, Rick, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week, I guess, for another great show.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Bill, for your expertise. It's always a pleasure discussing these types of topics with you, especially when it comes to business related topics. And folks, like we said at the top of the show, this is free advice. We hope you take this into consideration and hope it helps you in running your business efficiently. If you are interested in more episodes of the Bottle Business Sense Show, just go to our website at bottlebusinesssenseshow.com, and we have a whole host of previous episodes that speak to a lot of these things that we referred to today in the form of business entities, legal protection, best practices, as well as marketing. So go ahead. You're welcome to go back and just preview any of the previous episodes on all of these topics. There's a lot of great information there for you to have for free.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to seeing everyone again next week. And until then, I hope everybody has a prosperous week and goes out there and makes some money, because that's what we're all here to do in our business after all. So take care, everybody. Have a great week.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.